Hello ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to another video by Gamer Ben. Today we're going to look at the first impressions of the Lord of the Rings Gollum game that's just been announced. Well, it's been announced for a while, but we've seen some more information in the last couple of days. So I wanted just to talk a little bit about that in terms of first impressions, about what to expect, about whether it really gets us going as a community, about whether this is really something we can invest in. So, without further ado, the first thing to note, ladies and gentlemen, is that for this game, it's not based on the films, but based on the books. So, like the Lord of the Rings Online, don't expect the characters to look exactly as they do in the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings Hobbit arc, as it were. They're going to be quite different to that. In this case, you can see a couple of similarities. You know, obviously the troubled look of Gollum ensues in both the film and the game. But there's also a few notable differences as well, and you can see that this character is not going to be the same in any sense of the word. Obviously, the films took some inspiration from the books. Obviously, some people debate how much they did that and how well they did that, but the game is going to be very, very faithful to the books by the sounds of things. And they've made no illusions that that is their primary focus rather than the films. And I'm guessing, well, I'm not just guessing, I'm going to be pretty certain that's to do with rights issues, alongside the fact that the books have got a lot more content in them that have not yet been explored. So don't expect it to be an exact carbon copy in terms of the characters than what we've seen in the films. But the choice of Gollum as the main character for a game is a controversial one. Obviously, you've got the issue that the fact that he's not evil in the sense that he's, a real supervillain. He's somebody that has had a very, very difficult life, and you do feel pity for him. You do feel sympathy for him because he's not acting completely rationally, because he happened upon the ring. And the ring has been the instrumental part of his life that has really changed everything. So, in a sense, that is a key point about Gollum's character. Equally, he's not good, so you can't root for him either. You can sympathise with elements of his life, but you can't root for him because you know that he's corrupted massively by the ring. And, there are a lot of people in the fan base that would quite happily say that Gollum deserved to die, like Frodo suggested in the Fellowship of the Ring. In a similar vein, there are a lot of people who say, no, he was so important as a character. Well, he was very important as a character. But the choice of character being the main focus is a really interesting one. For those of you that haven't been around the games and the Lord of the Rings hype for a long time, you will have not known about a game that was announced at one point called The Lord of the Rings: The White Council. Now, for a lot of fans, that would have been the quintessential game. That is the one that we probably were all after, and it never happened. And I think actually, if you'd have asked the fans, they would have much preferred that rather than a Gollum game. But we get what we're given, and I think there's elements of this that look really quite good. So, on to some of the character reveals then. Gandalf. Again, in this case, Gandalf, the look of Gandalf, similar in some respects. Obviously they've taken the inspiration from the books, the hat, the cloak, the beard, everything like that is very, very much the same. There's only so much you can do with that. That's why they're not radically different in terms of that sense. But you can see that this Gandalf looks a lot more sort of one with nature. You can almost imagine that cloak being on Radagast, if anything. But really, really cool. I like the look of that design for Gandalf in this. Be interesting to see about the vocals and things like that, who plays him, because obviously Ian McKellen, iconic. That's all I can say. Absolute genius in the role. Whoever plays him has got tough boots to fill. Thranduil. Now this actually, in a way, isn't radically different, is it? You obviously had Lee Pace's portrayal in The Hobbit, which I thought was actually one of the highlights of The Hobbit. I think Lee Pace is a fantastic actor, and his portrayal of Thranduil was, for me, excellent. A lot of people criticised it for being wooden. People criticised him for being, lacking emotion and things like that, but that is effectively the portrayal that they wanted for Thranduil. And you can see that again in the new concept art or the new design for the new game. Thranduil, again, one with nature, you can see that. He's got the crown, which is very similar to the one in The Hobbit, maybe a little bit more in terms of like leaves and things. He's got that weird sort of thing around his neck at the top of his whatever he's wearing. That looks a little bit like panpipes or something you'd see in a garden, but let's see if it works. That could be really interesting. And then, of course, probably the the biggest change, and probably one that will cause the most controversy, is the Mouth of Sauron. Now, the Mouth of Sauron in the film, obviously when he appeared in the extended edition of Return of the King, I really liked it. I thought it was really, really good. There's a slight issue if you ever watch the extended edition. If you watch it again, as soon as they kill Mouth of Sauron, his body and his horse disappears when the gates open again. But we'll try and brush over that one. But this new design of Mouth of Sauron, very, very different. Less black, obviously, more colour. You see more of his face. Very strange that actually, considering it's called the Mouth of Sauron, that's the part of the body that they've actually concealed this time. Whereas in the film, that was the only bit you really saw. So there's a lot of change coming with this game. And I think there's a lot of difference between this and what we saw in the films. And for those who are real Lord of the Rings buffs, you'll know that there's cartoons as well, long before the films. And the Mouth of Sauron definitely looks a lot more like the film version in that cartoon than how he looked in this game. So let's see what happens. Thoughts then? What do I think about this game? Well, I think it's going to be a bit like Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed Gollum is what I've called it, because they've talked about parkour, they've talked about stealth, they've talked about cinematic adventure, and I think that is very... I'm currently playing through Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so I can relate it quite a bit to that. Hopefully we'll interact with a lot more other characters. I mean, they've certainly given that away a little bit in the trailer, that they say Gollum meets virtually everybody in Middle-earth. I'm not sure that's true, to be quite honest with you. But, you know, there's scope there for him to be run into Nazgul, other elves like Galadriel maybe, Elrond, other wizards, Saruman, Radagast possibly. And my final point is, it's not the game most people want. Okay, let's be honest, we would much prefer the Lord of the Rings The White Council. Hell, would even go for another Lord of the Rings Mordor series, you know, after Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. But, you know, we get what we're given, don't we, at the end of the day? And actually, compared to some games, and compared to some series, this is actually a reasonably good outcome. You know, if you think about some of the sort of shovelware that other franchises have had in recent years, this is actually going to be quite a decent, all-encompassing game, I think. And I think from what we can see, they're not messing around with the effort they're putting in. So I'm hopeful. I'll be buying it. I'm putting it out there now, unless I see something absolutely terrible that comes out between now and then about the game. But I'll be getting it for PS5. Release is 2022, so I've got a bit of time yet to, you know, save the old pennies if you're in that sort of situation. But let's hope for the best. As ever, guys, thank you for watching this video. I'll keep you updated with this game because it is something that means a lot to me. As you know, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. It's a series that I've got a lot of time for, and it's something that I want to spend a bit of time focusing on. So I'll keep you updated as I hear more. If you hear more, let me know. But thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, like and subscribe. That's really important for me. It helps the channel no end. And hit that bell so you get more notifications. Thank you very much. Take care.